You're listening to the Culture Junkie podcast, where we go beyond the surface of pop culture.
I'm Keith.
And I'm Xandra. Together, we dive into the craft process and passion that drive today's creators. This is the Culture Junkie podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Dr. Jim's Computer Repair in Belleville.
Dr. Jim now offers high-quality compatible ink cartridges online, delivered right to your door. Same print quality, far better price. Just the right ink the first time from someone you can actually talk to.
Head to drjimscomputerrepair.ca, find your printer, and start saving today. Hey guys, today on Culture Junkie, we're joined by a true Canadian original, Danny Marks, with a career spanning more than 5 decades. Danny's journey runs from chart-topping success with Edward Bear to becoming one of the country's most respected voices in blues, both on stage and on the airwaves. This is a conversation about evolution, staying power, and what it really means to keep creating decade after decade. Danny, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here, Keith. Love the idea of evolution. That's an ongoing theme that keeps evolving in our lives, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah. You've had one of the most diverse careers in Canadian music, from pop success to blues purism. When you zoom out, how do you connect all those chapters?
Well, I guess it probably goes back to the earliest times of just being interested in showing aptitudes as a child. I always was interested in drama and always interested in acting. So I took acting lessons with a woman named Dora Maver Moore. And Dora Maver Moore is the one they named the Dora Awards after.
That's right.
Yeah, so this was an early interest, but music was always around in our house. My dad could play any instrument. Mom loved to sing. Mom was kind of an amateur actress. And Dad, too. He was a great storyteller. So it all came naturally. And my older brother introduced me to rhythm and blues when I was just a tadpole. And my godfather, Bob DeYoung, gave me a book about the evolution of the human species, Darwinism, and things of that nature. So I was fascinated by the variety that things came in, like birds in the backyard. This was a yellow one or a red one. Well, they were cardinals or whatever they were, blue jays, sparrows, and then cedar waxwings are the more exotic birds. And then traveling around in Dad's car, I started spotting the different cars that were on the road. And as soon as I got interested in guitars, I became fascinated by Gibson. That was a brand I just loved. And I saw my first Fender and I thought, this is strange. And then I'd hear Gretsch guitars. I know, eh? So it all kind of comes together under one roof with me. And I like to bring things, I like to say that we need to see the big picture, even though the devil's in the details. You can't get caught up in the minutia. So people say to me, oh, Danny, you're certainly interested in trivia. And I say, no, it's called profundia. And my neighbor gave me that word. And
I'm
it's
going to use that.
Please do, Keith.
Anyways, let's take me back to your time with Edward Bear. I have to tell you, one of my seminal moments in my life was my dad got a new car. We had just moved to Canada, and his first car didn't have a radio, but we got a new car, new to us, and we were going on a trip on the radio, and the first song I ever heard on a car radio was "You, Me, Mexico." And that stuck in my head, and I am 63 years old now, and I remember it like it was yesterday. What was it like to have a hit song being a Canadian guy way back in the day?
Well, I'm really glad you said You, Me, and Mexico versus one of their latter-day hits, because that's part of the whole, I think the word might be dichotomy, but something to do with the fact that there were two lives for me and Edward Bear. But what it was like, Keith, was this. I was a kid. I was 17 years old. I had my first good Gibson, an SG Junior, and then from a chap named Al Matthews on Yonge Street at Mundinger Music, back when you could walk all the way up Yonge Street, past Eaton's and Simpson's, all the way to Long and McQuaid at 803, and go to all the music stores, and you'd see guys playing, women too, of course, people playing guitars, showing off licks. I remember the first time I ever heard somebody play the lead to Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison on a 12 string. It was inspiring. So I had my first good Gibson, and I answered an ad in what was called the After Four, which was part of the newspaper for teens. And there was an ad, blues guitarist wanted. I thought, well, that's me. I went to the basement of an architect's building at Prince Arthur in Bedford, and the architect was Klein and Sears. And one of the musicians was an architect by trade. And in the basement, there were four guys playing, and one after another, the guitar players would come in and try out. So I told the four chaps in the band, or I told one of them, you can send these other guys home. I'm here. I was very confident. Needless to say,
Seriously.
yeah, I got the job. So for what it was, and they didn't have a name for the band. And the one of the chaps who was a lead singer, he didn't want to be a drummer anymore. He just wanted to be a singer. We had a great jazz drummer who was maybe too good for us because he went on to join a group called Doctor Music, which is a very popular jazz band headed up by Doug Riley. But anyway, one of the fellows said, you know, eventually we got to get a name. And he pulled out the Winnie the Pooh book and he said, how about Edward Bear? And just for a joke, let's call it the Edward Bear Review, a parody of soul bands. Because in those years, it was either you were a greaser or you were a hippie. And we were quickly becoming hippies. And I guess some of them had come out of the greaser world, soul music. So we were evolving. So that's what it was like to join the group and to form the group. And once our bass player left and the drummers kept quitting, we distilled it down to being a trio. We started playing in church basements, high school auditoriums, high school basements, church auditoriums, you know, like places like that. No bars, no places where booze was for adults. And I didn't feel like we were adults. We weren't pot smoking hippies yet. We were mostly kids on the periphery of Yorkville where that great creativity was happening. So we developed a sound. Our organist, the architect, was very into Burt Bacharach and Hal David. And, you know, their songs are beautiful, major seventh chords,
Yeah.
beautiful chords. And I thought, you know what, this is good for me. I knew major seventh chords because I had learned Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying by Jerry and the Pacemakers.
There you go.
And then there was a song by the Dave Clark Five called Because, and it was a beautiful ballad. And it had every chord in it, you know, of the basic G augmented. So you learn the diminished chords, the augmented chords. So I was hip to that. But mostly I wanted to be blues. And I was also interested in pop because we loved the Beatles. We loved the British invasion. But my brother turned me on to blues. So Edward Bear started to get better and better. We moved into Yorkville. We became a trio. We became united in our purpose. People think we were divided, but it's like oil and vinegar, the pop side, the blues side. Once you shook us up, we became dressing. And the thing was, we had a goal in common to be big, to hit the big time. And we were discovered by the same guy who knew the Beatles were going to be big. And that was Paul White from Capitol
Okay.
Records.
So, so you think it was the amalgamation of the styles that made you guys connect with the audience back then?
Absolutely, Keith. A lot of groups were one thing or another, and other groups were mixtures, but I think we brought the mix together beautifully. Now, Me in Mexico, what a great song that was. Now, Larry Evoy, not being a piano player or a guitarist, he couldn't figure out the chords or how the song would go. He knew what the beat would be, and he made these melodies up driving around Toronto in the band wagon, in the band truck. We had this old blue beater truck that we carried our gear around in. And these melodies would come to him and the lyrics. So he brought it to Paul and Paul and I devised some chords for it. And I said, we need an intro. Let's go F, G minor, A minor, B flat. C suspended, and then it starts F. It's been a long time. I know that's deeper. So I kind of came up with an intro, and I came up with that little guitar solo in the middle. And Paul White from Capitol said, not unlike what George Martin said to the Beatles, and we were no Beatles, but the same way that they said, da 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 da, like, it's a little slow, guys. Like, can you pick it up? And George Martin and the chaps of the record company wanted it faster, make it faster. So we made You Me in Mexico faster. Next thing we know, we're recording it with Terry Brown, who was about to become Rush's producer eventually. But Rush was still in the front row looking at us and going, wow, we like what they're doing. And so were Triumph. I mean, we were there before them, marginally. So You and Me in Mexico became faster. And Terry Brown said, that sound of Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass,
There you
that's
go.
natural for this. Put the marimbas on, and the trumpets on, and Doug Riley arranged it. Terry Brown got dug in. The studio musicians gave it sweetening. And Richie York, who was a real scoundrel, but he was a really connected scoundrel, he began to get the word about Edward Bear out. He said Edward Bear to John Lennon so many times that John Lennon finally turned around from the front seat and said to Richie York, who the hell is Edward Bear anyway? And Richie went, I've got my quote. Even John Lennon wants to know. Well, of course he did, because Richie never stopped talking about us.
Right.
So we had a great team. And Larry was like a slightly older brother to me. And Paul was the glue that kept us together. And it really was great chemistry. And a trio, Keith, is a beautiful formation. Am I doing it right? There we go.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
It's funny. Do you want to talk about a trio? As a kid, for me, it was Crowbar, Edward Bear, and the Stampeders.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
The Stampeders started as a huge band. I don't know how many there were, like Lighthouse.
And they ended up with 3, though. Anyhow,
I think Sweet City Woman is a great recording.
That's a great song. You know what? My favorite is Minstrel Gypsy. I thought that was a really cool song.
You went for the slightly more obscure ones, right?
Yeah, my parents are musical, and my family's musical, and I really get sucked in by a hook. So after your initial success, and you were a very young man, was it difficult, stepping in away from that and getting back to your, to the blues roots?
Well, we recorded a lot of blues and psych, what they call today psych music, with Edward Bear. And I think I was very happy with the first album. I think, though, that I was young and I was easily swayed by what the fans were saying. There was a lot of pulling and tugging on us as young chaps in Edward Bear. Not just me, but Larry. And Paul was, I think, more rooted. He was married. He had his own house. He had a straight job as an architect. And even though he gave that up for a while, he was making money on the side, designing album covers for different labels. And the record company said to us, guys, you've got a hit. And not only that, but your album is a huge success. We've never seen such sales for an album. And we were number 3 on the Chum chart. That's as far up as we went. Let It Be was, I think, the Beatles song that kept us from getting to the top. So, that's okay.
That's okay.
So we were being pulled and tugged. So the blues fans were coming to me and saying, isn't that You, Me in Mexico? Isn't that kind of poppy? I mean, aren't you guys heavy and bluesy? And I was like, yeah, we are. We're going to put out a blues song for our follow-up, and that'll show everybody. And I was listening to these fans. I mean, after all, they were the ones that gave us such a huge ovation opening for Paul Butterfield. They were the ones that put us in front of the Led Zeppelin audience. It wasn't strictly the pop fans who were doing it,
Right.
but it was fans of the band that liked the two sides. I went to the record company. I said, I've got the song for us. And Paul Weldon said, I've also got the song for us. He said, our first song was You and Me Down in Mexico. I've got one, 4 months out to Africa. I mean, this is perfect. we're going from Mexico to Africa, and 4 Months Out to Africa was a great song. I played banjo in it and other stuff, so I had a bit to play in it. Larry sang it. I said, "Well, no, I've got one. It's called You Can't Deny It." Na 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 na, boom, boom, ba-da, really rough
There you
and
go.
tough. There we go. The Hammond organ, the Toronto sound. That's what we got to do. The record company said, Danny, we love you. We love the band, but you've got to stick with the formula because this is what pop groups do. You got to ease and evolve, right, Keith? You've got to evolve. And I was like, no time for evolution. I said, look at the Beatles there. But the Beatles also did that. All of the bands did that. Once you had a hit with one thing, you gently introduce the public to your evolution. And I know that's the theme of this podcast. But I wanted to come right away, go to the hard, heavy side. I insisted. The record company said, well, okay, we'll give it a shot. And at the same time, Keith, there was another force in our circle, and that was what they call an applied religious philosophy.
Okay.
Okay. And this applied religious philosophy had people from the band and management subscribing to what their teachings were. It wasn't quite a religion. It wasn't quite a philosophy. It was a bit scientific. And I see by the look in your face. So mother said, I'm not signing for you to become that. And I said,
Mm,
Mom, the guys, everybody is. I said, but okay. And then when I turned of age to sign myself, I said, guys, I'm not signing. I don't feel right about this. And Larry said, but really you should sign because it says right in the book, this is what you should do. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to put out the funky side. The funky side, our follow-up single, made it to number 16 in the charts at Peterborough, but it didn't do that well. It wasn't a number 3. It wasn't
right.
top 10. And I said, I'm leaving the band. Everyone was horrified. You can't leave. Look at how hard we worked to get here. And Keith, all I thought was, well, I left school at 17. I can leave the band. And I did. And around that time, I thought maybe success came too easy for me. Maybe, like, Dad, you can't leave. You're only 17. If you leave, my house, my rules, hand me the keys. Here they are, Dad. And then a few months later, Dad's reading the Globe and Mail over breakfast coffee. Eddie Marks, one of the finest guitarists in Canada.
There you
Well, how
go.
the hell did that happen? He kind of taught himself how to do this. And I thought, no, I didn't deserve all that. And besides, all that lead guitar thing, a lot of it was bluster. It wasn't like, listen to Chet Atkins, listen to Wes Montgomery, listen to Charlie Christian, T-Bone Walker, Los Indios Tabajaras, even Dwayne Eddy. Simple, but, you know, all this fuzz tone and all this wanky blues rock. No. And then I heard Bob Marley, and then I heard Merle Haggard, and then I went, man, that's great music. And I heard the band, and a lot of guitarists around that time, like me, we were going, why are we all, playing hour-long guitar solos and so self-indulgent and getting so, whacked out? So then I hit the skids.
Oh, right.
It was tough, man.
Yeah, you stuck to your guns, and I think those who stick to their guns are the ones who are around at the end. But anyways, you talk about the slang style. Listen, I'm not a noodling guy either. You know what I mean? I like to keep it simple. But anyway, how's your playing style evolved from that time? As now a seasoned blues musician.
Well, in my new album, which is blues, Back to the
Ah,
Blues, um, I am definitely putting together a completely blues album because the thing is, it's a niche, right? Now, I wasn't born in Mississippi. I haven't suffered like some people have, but I do believe that there's a genetic memory that makes some of us more predispositioned. And maybe we've all suffered at some point in our evolution of our species. Again,
mm,
right, with the evolution. So I mean, how do the British guys understand the blues so beautifully and parrot it back with feeling? How does Stevie Winwood sound so much like he wasn't really copying Ray Charles? He was doing it his own way, but he was soulful. Now I'm Joe Cocker. Joe Cocker for me is over the top. I don't, I don't, you know, it, but that's my taste. But but so I saw other people. So I'm thinking, Keith. What I'm saying is that I realized that there was a lot more music out there, and I had developed along a certain line where my brother turned me on to playing ba-dunk, a dunk, a dunk, a dunk on the first guitar I ever owned. What the heck is that? That's Jimmy Reed. And then he said, "Look at this. Boom, dum, boom, dum, boom, dum, boom, dum, boom. One finger, two strings, maybe three at the most. Ray Charles, what I say?" Like, wow, what a feeling. What a feeling. So I totally was into the blues from Jimmy Reed, the old cats on, not so much Robert Johnson, but at an early age, I saw Lonnie Johnson, and he left me with a message that that taught me if I told his story, I would be rewarded. And that is, in a way, the legacy that I've had was, and I saw Lonnie Johnson, I was 19. Who is that guy? That's Lonnie Johnson. Really? I don't know if I've heard of him. And how come he's got like a halo, an aura? What the hell is that? Years later, I wrote a song about Lonnie Johnson. I played his lick, I sang his melody, and I told the story, Keith, of how I first saw him. I was 19 years old. He had a rainbow around his shoulders, shining just like gold. And a guy who owned a TV network said, "Hey, that's Danny Marks singing that song about Lonnie Johnson. We should give him his own TV series." So Lonnie was saying to me, "One day, you tell my story, kid, and I'll be your angel from beyond the grave yet." Right?
That's amazing. You know,
Oh, man.
that is funny. That's the second story. Ernest Lee, the late Ernest Lee, told me a story about Lonnie one time, and I can't remember the details of it, but that's the second. It was really pricked up my ears. That that's the second time he's been mentioned when I speak to people and friends in music. Anyhow, that's amazing. That's great.
He from down east in Canada that came and played
Yeah,
at he was
yeah.
quite a character.
Oh, that guy was wild. He was the neighbor of a guy who played bass in a couple of bands I was in, and we would have a jam session once or twice a year in my buddy's backyard, and Ernest would always come, and he'd kind of hold court by the end of it. He was an interesting dude, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, I think that's a nice way to put it because he must have had a pretty hard upbringing because I
Yeah,
think
he did.
he lived by his own laws and his own rules.
Hmm.
I'm fortunate that I had kind of a more of a middle class, kind of a thing. We weren't
You and
we
me
weren't
both.
we're lucky that way, Keith. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Danny, you're a great storyteller. You're on a raconteur. How does that work into your creative process?
My father was a beautiful storyteller. And people have told me all along the line that everything in art and music and painting, which is art, it's all storytelling. So if you make something about a list, a lot of people will just blank out. I know I will. I'm not interested in lists of names and dates. The dates are sort of interesting in some ways, and sure, the names can be colorful and interesting. But if somebody, for instance, at my job as a radio programmer, sends me a piece of music, and what it is a list of the names of the people who played on it, I blank out. The great records we loved, if you wanted to know who the hell played on them, you had to make sure. Oh, Carol Kay again? Earl
Yeah.
Palmer. Okay, that's interesting. They didn't put the sidemen's names on. It
Hmm.
was about the story. So I want to hear the story. So I look at everything in terms of what's the story here? What's the big picture? And as much as I'm interested in the details, I can tell you what year a guitar was made very often, even
Yeah.
what part of the year to a
Mhm.
degree, but I mean, if somebody asked me what year I did something, I'd have to think of what grade was I in or who were my friends or who was I dating, and then
Mm.
maybe I could come up with a year.
Hey, listen.
So stories are where it's at.
Yes, listen, you know what? And that's why at the end of the day, that's why we tune in to hear the story, you know? So, you've been at this for a long time and you've got an album coming out shortly. How's it different putting music out for you today than it was 50 years ago?
50 years ago, I would guess we were in those little coffee houses, and and money was. I remember as a child, you'd see these stamps from Germany that were like the value was 2 million German marks, and you go, "Wow, that's a lot!" And then wait a minute, that's like 10 cents. So a stamp to mail a letter, right? So it's not so much that everything's that much more expensive; it's just that money is worth that much less. But
Mhm.
we used to play, in coffee houses. So now I'm not on tour. I don't go on tour. I'm not as interested in touring. So I mostly now I play in town. So I have one or two jobs that I play on a monthly basis. And these two venues, the people love the music so much. One is tiny, and there are more music lovers there per square inch than any
Tell them where it
venue.
is.
It's called Castro's, and it's in the beach. And hopefully I'll still be able to play there. I played there for over a decade. And the other is called Smoke Show, and it's the old Chicken Deli, Mount Pleasant and Eglinton, blocks away from where I went to high school. Still some neighbors that grew up. So last time we played there, that movie It's a Wonderful Life
Absolutely.
where Jimmy Stewart is looking around and wondering if anybody's going to come.
Yeah.
Last Sunday when we played there, in through the door, people who I've known for decades, maybe somebody I went to school with, maybe the guy that booked the Isabella Hotel of the 70s, maybe my best booking agent and best friend just back from the hospital with a quadruple bypass, his
Wow.
first or second time out of the house, maybe a mother with her little child who even before we play is holding his ears, "Mommy, it's too loud, it's too loud." And she says, "I've got little sound canceling headphones for him." They go out, they come back in. I see them come back in. The child is looking at me on the stage. We're between songs. I said to the audience, "Here's somebody seeing musicians for the first time." And we start to play this beautiful, quiet version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And the kid looks at us, and we're playing it like as a band, but kind of creatively, right? And I'm singing it, and the audience that's on the dance floor is doing the dance where they go up above, all of those gestures, and the kid is just, I can relate. I mean, the kid is like he's a knee-high child, 2 or 3 years old, just a toddler, and he looks at his mom, "Mommy, I know that, Mommy, it's not scary." And don't you know that little guy? He claps. They
Of
all
course.
clap. I mean, so this is what it's like now, all ages. Our oldest guy is in his 90s. He comes in his walker. He's got attachments to here, attachments for his old folks' home, and people of all ages. So and I get there and I might feel like sore and tired. And yeah, I kind of feel a bit sore and tired after, but it's a different kind of sore and tired. I still can play the guitar behind my head like this,
Well done.
and the audience is like, "Oh my God, look what he's doing." When it's time to take a solo, I have my Stratocaster, I have the whammy bar. No
Red one?
longer, I have a red one, but right now I have the black one out. I have a green one. I've got a few guitars. So I take that guitar, I step towards the center of the stage. I look out at that crowd. No pedals. People are like, "How connected is this man to the guitar?" I look at them like, "Do you believe this sound?" Because I've seen Hank Marvin use that expression. Like, I'm just so honored to be playing this tone to you right now. My amp is turned up to 6. The treble is also at 6. The bass maybe at 5. The reverb is at 6. I mean, it's reverberating. It's mic'd. It's not one of those things where the sound man is saying, "Oh, you're too loud. It's too loud. I can't put you in the mains." Screw you. I'm in the mains, it's loud, and once I get a handle on it, I'm playing it gently when it's time, and then when it's time to be heard, I dig it in. I'm not adjusting the volume control a lot or the tone control much. I got the whammy bar, and people are like, "That sound is hitting me." Instant. It's beautiful.
So what kind of amp are you playing these days?
I have a bunch of beautiful amplifiers, but we had a little incident at our house where our neighbor's house caught in flames. So all of my belongings are in storage, except for a few articles of clothing, other necessities of home, one Fender electric guitar, one Gibson classical guitar, and a Fender Deluxe Reverb that's sitting at the bottom of the stairs.
That's a nice amp.
It is a great amp, Keith.
Is it vintage?
Well, yeah, I have a real great vintage one that they took for storage that they shouldn't have. I have another one that is I believe it's a 74 or one of the last before they put the master volume in. And I told my tech friend, my amp guy, make this sound like the old one. We still haven't got there. We're about
Mm.
90% there. It's got a 5U4 rectifier tube. And I said to him, I want a 5AR4. Do you mind like the old ones? Oh no, he goes, we have to change this, we have to change that. So we'll make it so, man.
Do it.
I want that one to sound, it's got the same speaker, the same new old stock tubes. Let's do it, man.
That sounds cool. That's cool. I am being about a generation younger than you. I grew up with a solid state sound, but I gotta think my favorite amp is still a JC 120, and and
Those are beautiful.
yeah, that was such a great one. Anyway, that's my thing. But I digress. So, I miss the chicken deli as well. But anyhow, you lived through, like I said, you've lived through the eras. You've got a radio show. You're on Much Music, correct?
I know I was not on Much Music.
Were you not?
No, I had the good fortune of having a TV show on Cable 10 that was about the jams from
That's
Stormy,
right.
and that went for years, and that actually got nationwide somehow at a time that Rogers Cable 10 had some kind of budget for nationwide shows. And then I had a decade of the TV series Cities in Blue. It started on a channel called Hi-Fi, and it migrated to BBC First, which was basically the same channel with a more highfalutin name. So I can
Yeah,
say I was on BBC.
there you go.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
So, how do you embrace social media and the new platforms at all?
Well, I'm big on Facebook, and I have decided to start making all of my posts public, and I'm writing the stories of Edward Bear, and I would tell you, man, Keith, since you're interested. Turns out people think I should be writing a book, which I think is silly because I think books are old fashioned and really people can tell you, well, you're too bluesy for this group. You should quit, which they did back in Edward Bear days. Or now, why you should write a book. You should write a book. And I say to them, never mind a book. Are you going to buy my album or are you going to tell me I should write a damn book? Screw you, a book. But in the meantime, excuse the expression, I'm writing my stories on Facebook. I found old pictures of Edward Bear. I put them through artificial intelligence and colorized them and cleaned them up so people think they look fabulous and we look like very handsome. And I'm telling
Guy saying that Vintage Toronto is putting up some AI posters. That picture
I'm
just a couple
telling you,
days ago.
there's two Vintage Toronto sites. One of them is real, and I don't know how they can be allowed to have the same name on Facebook. It makes me mad because the real Vintage Toronto shows beautiful old streetcars and legitimate sites. The fake Vintage Toronto, which I believe comes from Los Angeles, is
Okay,
completely AI pictures.
right.
And people are like, "Oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember that." And other people are saying, "You fool, you can't remember that because this is AI." And and honestly, Keith, like I'm against it. And I'll tell you what happened to me the other week. I got fooled. I got sent a beautiful recording and I told people, listen to how great this is. And then eventually I went, wait a second. And I looked around and it was AI. So AI can imitate soul music. AI
Yeah.
can imitate some of the best guitar playing you've ever heard and great recordings. So, yeah, I'm against it, but there I am on Facebook, and I have AI'd pictures of Edward Bear. I look at it as being like the modern version of photoshopping it, or of Vaseline on the lens,
Yeah.
or how they would make an old picture look better. So I'm still using the old picture. I'm cleaning it up, and yeah, you're right. I'm walking a very thin line, my friend. I know.
Yeah. Listen, the AI music's the whole thing, it's gotta tell, especially genre-based, when you hear the soul music, it's really close, but the production value is just off. It just seems too good, for me. I hear it and I go, "That guy does not sound real." This just sounds auto-tuned to me.
See, I could hear that in narration, and I end up watching a lot of narrated AI stories and biographies and things. For
Mm,
one thing, the voice is clearer than a lot of the human voices are,
mm.
but I can tell in an AI voice by the rhythm. Is it called is syntax? Is that a word? But the
Yeah.
the ebb and flow of it, I can hear the emphasis on certain syllables,
Yeah.
and then the fact that they can't say in 1970, they go in 1970, or
7-0.
they'll
Yeah.
talk about a bass player as a bass player, and I'll go, aha, got ya. But
Yeah.
man, in music, I still have to learn. In images, I can usually tell.
Mm.
And if it's completely created from the ground up as AI, that's when I don't use it. But if it's sort of helped along a bit by an AI process, I will, because some of the old pictures are just they're just not that clear, So, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I dabble, as being a online person here, I dabble in it. But Danny, you've done so much great stuff and you've been at it for so long. What's still on your bucket list creatively?
Well, I'm not one for lists, but um, I think creatively, my immediate goal is, because within 3 or 4 days, we're putting out the album Back to the Blues, which is sort of a compilation, and it's a couple of the more recent songs that I've released in the last year or two, and a few songs from blues albums I've made over the years, just because I want to placate the blues people, and also because I want people to hear an entire album of me playing blues, what my visions are of all the colors of the blues. That's on the bucket list. Also, I would like to be playing more, and I'd like to be playing more festivals and bigger stages. And honestly, Keith, not to sound bitter about it, but I have felt that there's a lot of resistance to me and getting my name on blues festivals. The reason is I'm not only blues, but they
Mm,
book a lot of other people that are not only blues. But for whatever reason, sometimes the problem is, when you're a guitarist, they say, well, he's not really a singer, he's a guitar player. I've been told, you shouldn't be singing, just play. And then other people say, well, he's not really a radio guy, he's a musician. And then people say, well, he's not a musician. Isn't he a DJ? And I'm sorry, but I am those things. And also, I'm become a pretty good writer, and I can write stories, but I'm not going to write a book, no matter how many people tell me to. So what's on the bucket list is, I would like to be able to play I find somebody who will help me with my career and help me with booking, because I'm not an agent, I'm not a manager, and I'm not a promoter, but I am a very good on stage. Very good when I'm center stage. I'm one of those rare people that can talk to a big audience and make them feel like I'm talking to just one person. Not to, hey, everybody, how y'all doing? We got, it's not that. It's like person to person, and I deserve to be in front of these crowds. And the fact that there's resistance to it, or people down through the years who have been overly one way or another to me, and I've shut them down, because
mm.
Keith, I don't suffer fools. And people very often say stupid stuff. I don't have time for it. I shut them down, maybe
There
too
you go.
quickly. You know what I mean? So this is on my bucket list, is to make amends, and also to be able to be playing music for bigger crowds, better crowds, and to be playing as often as I want because it's healing for me. It's healing for the audience. There's an audience that wants to see me, and there's a me that wants to see the audience. It's only the people in the middle that are getting in the way.
There's always that, eh? This has been amazing, Danny. Thank you so much for this. Tell me, so who do you like that's out that's kind of new? Who do you listen to?
Well, a lot of the people I listen to, like the Mavericks, aren't that old, but now they're gone. So, other people that I was starting to really like R.L. Burnside, same thing, or Leonard Cohen's more recent stuff, he's gone too. It's unfortunate, but if I was to look at the playlist of a Blues FM program, and I do have to have a list, I write them down on paper, but I go into the station, I make the program, and then after I've decided what songs are on, I write them down, and then I might type them out. But you know what? I mean, it's very hard for me to say among all of the latest people because I guess I have a bit of a resistance. I want people to be around for a while before I decide that I like them or not, and I'm not that quick to jump on the whatever is the latest. I should have if I had my little piece of paper with me, I could go down and see what's new because of the new recordings that I'm playing. There's a lot of Canadians on there, Russell DeCarl, Laurie Yates, Heather Morgan. Heather Morgan is the single most requested song I've ever played on the radio, and
Oh,
she's somebody that nobody knows anymore. She's gone into hiding. She's a dog walker. She's made a recording that anytime I play it, people
mm.
demand to know who
Who
is
is
that?
that?
Where can I buy that? And I can't even get her by email much anymore. She's embarrassed, I think, that her record is so popular. The producer doesn't want to talk about it. He's doing other things. The guys in her band don't want to talk about it. They're disappointed. And this music is languishing, and her name is Heather Morgan, and her song is called Johnny Edwards. It's a great song, and I champion her, and of all the new releases that I'm playing in this coming program, Ken Whiteley, who's been around a long time, Cheryl Lescombe, veterans who've been around a while. One of my favorite people, his name is Jay Douglas, and Keith, if you ever get a chance to talk to Jay Douglas, what a story he has. He was in
Okay.
an R&B band called the Cougars after he came up from Jamaica as a young lad. So Jay Douglas and I found out that we were both at the Club Jamaica when we were kids. I was there because the guy who booked the club
That's funny.
sold shoes at Eaton's, and my mother and I went in to buy me a pair of shoes when I was 14. He said, "Oh, yeah, I got a nightclub up here, the Club Jamaica. I'm a musician. Can I play?" I said, "Sure, come in." And we came in, and there was his audience, all Jamaicans, sitting in the
Worst.
dark. And there we were, Louie Louie, oh no. And they're going, "These kids are almost reggae." And this guy, and Jay Douglas, who is currently now the talk of the town, the toast of the music scene, his moment has come. He's older even than I, and he's like a mentor to me. A beautiful man. He's produced by Eddie Bullen, who's also a great musician. His son is
Uh,
Quincy Bullen.
Okay.
You know,
It's so funny. There's just so many clubs that are gone, throughout our lifetime in Toronto. There's COVID really closed a lot of doors, and I find I'm struggling to find venues, and it's when you go back and talk about these old places, it's it kind of hurts my heart a bit.
well, yeah, and the whole COVID experience, it was a terrible, terrible time for us, and, I'm still asking questions that I asked when it happened, and questions I was told are not appropriate to ask, and this is not the time for any individual to be asking a question. It's only the time to roll up your sleeve and take one, you
Go,
know?
go, go. Yeah.
I tell you, man, that just did not sit with us very well at all.
No,
It was
no, we took
bad.
one. All right. Anyway, Danny Marks, thank you very much. Great, best of luck with the new album, and we'll be talking to you soon again, I hope.
I would love that, Keith. You're a rare quantity in the interview business because I mean, I'm a big talker. You let me talk. Thank you.
Hey, if they're good, I let them go. Anyway, talk to you soon.